Call 888-PBT-1954 and learn more about our Save by Spending programs. At People's Bank and Trust, we put you and your savings first. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome into the WTIM, your information station. This is the WTIM Morning Show. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host. Thank you so much to People's Bank and Trust, one of our sponsors, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. On my line today, I have Valerie Belusco. She is a University of Illinois Extension and Community Economic Development educator. How are you today, Miss Belusco?
Good. How are you?
Doing super well. I appreciate you coming in, taking the time today, because we're talking all about community and development, of course, as we do. And today you got some interesting things to talk about. We're talking volunteers. We're talking, where have they gone? Are people volunteering anymore? I've recently talked to people with the Taylorville Food Pantry. We have them on the show pretty frequently, and they struggle to find volunteers all the time. Tell me about this. What's going on?
Well, you know what? It's something that I hear over and over and over. And I think Extension as a whole is hearing it, which is why we've kind of started and looking at really how can we as Extension help these community groups work in today's culture and around today's needs, because volunteers have changed. And it's simply because we have so much on our plates these days. We are literally chasing our tails. It doesn't mean that we don't want to help or we don't volunteer or don't want to volunteer. It just means the nature of volunteer work is not the same as it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. So how do we navigate through what's going to be the new normal?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting and very simple problem right there, that the real reason is because people are really just busy. That's really the reason why we're losing volunteers. People are really just trying to get ahead. It's the rat race.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, we've had lots of transitions over the last 40 years, probably maybe even 50 years.
Yeah.
We have so many more women in the workforce now working full time, more so than ever. Most households need to have dual incomes, or if it's a single parent household, then that single parent is, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sometimes everyone. And so when you think about that and you think about the just cost of living that we have today, and the things that we need, or we think we need, in order to fully participate in this century, we have to have money. And so we work. And it's just not as easy to fit volunteering into our schedule. But what I have noticed is that in this area, we have so many people with just wonderful, full hearts. They want to give, they want to help. They're just not sure how to fit it into their schedules. And I think the people who need the volunteers aren't sure how they can really work, different schedules into their needs. So it's just kind of putting that puzzle together so that everybody can participate and, get what they need out of volunteerism.
Yeah, sure. It's an extremely strange problem because, I've seen it firsthand here in Taylorville. We have volunteers that cover many events, and just out of the kindness of their own hearts. But, it really comes down, you mentioned women being involved in the workforce. Now, that's going to take away less time for people to be able to volunteer. There's people working all over the place. So, the volunteer, they want to volunteer, but they just don't find the time to do so. People that corporations or organizations that need volunteers, what has their plans been like to try to attract more?
So often it is how do I say this? They need volunteers now. They needed volunteers yesterday, actually. And so it is filling in need of panic, because they have a mission, they have things that need to be done. So it really is kind of the panic fill is what I call it. And that can only last for so long. Yeah. It really does kind of wear down the volunteers you have, because they're kind of constantly on call. Yeah. And it doesn't really create a good line of succession for building new volunteers and finding new ways to solve traditional problems. And so, we try to think about it from different perspectives and, who's coming into the workforce, who's going out of the workforce, and what intrinsically people need to get out of their volunteer work, and how to kind of match those needs with the work that is needed, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So, I know we've talked about generations before.
Sure.
But when we think about so many of the boomers that have retired and are retiring, they're not done living. They get to retire, but they're kind of on the mindset where they really enjoy work, but they want it to be very meaningful. And so they don't always want busy work. They want to be part of a volunteer team where what they do matters, and if they had skills in their workplace or in their job before, they want to be able to still utilize all of those skills that they have to help make things better. So approaching them in a way that isn't just giving them busy work and filling a time slot, but really utilizing their skill set and their networks can be incredibly important.
Yeah, but that's hard to do, right? I mean, in terms of these volunteer positions, maybe one person is just filling a box and then moving it on. That's what volunteer work is. It's not always going to utilize the strengths. So has the reaction been, I'm not going to volunteer because I'm not putting, all of my knowledge to use?
Well, it really just depends. Some people, that's what they need. Some people don't. Some people really just need flexibility. They want to have the feeling of doing something good to help their community, but they have very busy schedules and they need flexibility. So they might need to say, listen, when I build out my schedules, I'm always kind of like a month out, right? So if somebody asks me for help with something, today, okay, but I'm going to start looking like November 12th. Let me look at that calendar. So let me check a month out. And as soon as I get it on my calendar, it's on there. I am there for you. And I know there's a lot of people like that. So sometimes you have to ask in advance and you have to say, can I have 2 hours of your time 2 days a week?
Sure.
And then, really make sure that the volunteers that you have that you're cultivating, especially the new ones, make sure that they understand how important they were that day, that moment, to help you achieve your goal. And some people do not like praise. I am one of the people. I get very embarrassed. Don't thank me publicly. I will blush. I will run from you. But there's something to be said about praising people, because it's not just about giving that person thanks for helping, but it also shows the community, hey, these are the kind of people that help. We can fit it into busy schedules. It helps show the family members that, if you see mom volunteering for 2 hours and you notice that mom gets thanked in front of you, all of a sudden you're going, that's important to my community, what my mom's doing. And then you start to have that mindset. So it is good to publicly thank and acknowledge your volunteers, even if they're kind of shy and stubborn like me and don't really like that.
Sure. Yeah. No, I love that you mentioned, seeing mom get thanked for volunteer work, because I remember going to volunteering events as a young person, and that's when that's ingrained into you. Like, this is important work. This is what this is all about. While we're talking about it, what about the kids? I mean, they don't have as much time. They have more time, right? They're not working full-time jobs, and they're not out there volunteering. Why is that?
Well, I don't know if they necessarily have more time. Let me tell you, my daughter, let's see, Tuesday night she had, or no, it was Wednesday. Wednesday she had jazz band practice before school. Then she had school. Then she had basketball game, and then she had trap practice. So at 9 o'clock she finally got home to do homework. So some kids are pretty darn busy. But you know what? There are some kids that aren't, but many times they're in a situation where they're watching their siblings after school. And the parents really need them to be there to watch the siblings. Or maybe they don't have a ride, or maybe there's something that they need to do to help out at the house because mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, they work so much. And so some of those responsibilities fall on the kids.
Yeah.
So understanding how busy they are is always important. But what I would say is look to whatever they're involved in. If they're involved in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, something like that, utilize that time to do community service projects, like go to the food pantry and help stock shelves or, rake leaves, anything like that. That is wonderful opportunities. It gives kids great experience. It helps them build their social skills as well as their physical skills and capabilities. So always include them. Don't leave them out. Don't forget about them.
Right. The kids often get a bad rap for being lazy, but you just said it right there. I mean, you throw in one thing like a Boy Scout or a sport, or they have a clarinet practice. That's a nightly routine. And then you throw in anything like watching your siblings after school. Kids are also finding the same issues. They are just too busy to volunteer. But, we're going to try to start some good practices here. Miss Belusco, we're going to take our first short little break right here. When we come back, we're going to talk more about community and how we can get more volunteers up and active. My name has been Tim Zalabek here on the WTIM Morning Show. Don't go anywhere.
Your information station, WTIM.
There's a new place in Taylorville to enjoy breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and their street is reopened. The all-new American Eagle Restaurant at 102 East Park is open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Breakfast includes exquisite skillets, omelets with fresh veggies, and tasty Benedicts. The lunch menu offers lots of sandwiches, wraps, melts, paninis, and super sandwiches. The dinner menu at the all-new American Eagle Restaurant offers steak, pork, seafood, and stir-fry with lots of sides, desserts, and beverages. Check them out. The all-new American Eagle Restaurant, 102 East Park in Taylorville, and their street is reopened.
Hi, this is Jared White, host of Central Illinois Outdoors, inviting you to find us on the internet. We are up and running at centralillinoisoutdoors.com. You can jump on there to find our Catch of the Week segment. Also, our archive shows. After they air on the weekend, you can find them every Monday at centralillinoisoutdoors.com. So listen when you can. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Central Illinois Outdoors. Central Illinois Outdoors on Facebook or at centralillinoisoutdoors.com. We'll see you there.
So how's harvest? Higher yield potential starts with the season-long systemic disease protection of Xyway brand fungicides from FMC. Xyway brand fungicides protect corn crops from key foliar diseases and support physiological benefits that help develop healthier, higher yielding corn for a difference you'll appreciate at harvest. Visit your FMC retailer for an at-plant advantage. Always read and follow all label directions.
This is Randall J. Miller, president of the Miller Media Group. We're proud to bring you another Business of the Month spotlight to recognize an area business for their contributions to their town's employment and community service.
The Miller Media Group has named Taylorville Home Source Design Center on East Park as its Business of the Month. Owner Rick White, a Taylorville native, came back to town after living in Florida for many years. He and wife Kathy opened Taylorville Home Source on West Spresser almost 19 years ago. They moved to a larger location just under 3 years ago, offering Taylorville and South Central Illinois a greatly expanded selection of in-stock product. They also do in-house design for every customer.
We at the Miller Media Group take this time to recognize this local business as our Business of the Month. And we hope you'll use this business and other local businesses that keep our economy going every day. Spending dollars local makes sense.
Just Beds are the yawn exterminators, and they can give you a better night's sleep. Choose from Bemco, Chatham & Wells, Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic. Find out the many models and styles available on their updated website by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is Mike Masterson with Masterson Funeral Home and Cremation Services in Kincaid. Let our family serve your family by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. My name is Tim Zalabek, your host. Thank you so much to our sponsors that make this show possible. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. You always do better at Landmark. I have Valerie Belusco on my line right now. She's with the University of Illinois Extension as a community and economic development educator. We still got you there, Miss Belusco.
Sure do.
Beautiful. All right. So that first half, we're talking volunteers. We're talking about these struggles in getting more volunteers in the doors of places that really need the help. Now, Ms. Belusco, we're going to start this second segment, starting with the people that are needing the volunteers. What do they need to be doing in order to get volunteers and maybe keep them all in order?
So a lot of times nonprofits have always hired for a few traditional positions. So usually they're hiring for an executive director and maybe somebody in finance. And that is wonderful and amazing. But those are very narrow skill sets, I would say, very, very specific skill sets. And those skill sets don't always have or cross over into volunteer management and volunteer leadership skills and training. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that executive directors are busy doing a million things just to keep things running behind the scenes. And so they don't always have the time they need to build relationships and to manage relationships of volunteers. So a book that I am reading, which I'm going to recommend if that's okay to say the book. Okay. The book I am reading is called The New Breed, Understanding and Equipping the 21st Century Volunteer. It's by a father and son duo who have both spent a lot of time working in different types of nonprofits and with churches, Jonathan McKee and Thomas McKee. And this is the second edition. And it's just very eye-opening, the tips that it gives you. And one of the things that it talks about is how when you're thinking about hiring staff, one of the positions you really should be investing in is hiring a volunteer coordinator. And you don't necessarily have to have that as a paid position. Depending on the size of your nonprofit and the needs of your nonprofit, it might be beneficial. But many times we kind of overlook ways of utilizing technology to kind of help map out our volunteers and needs and calendars and schedules. And so when you think about maybe a busy mom like me who wants to volunteer, but maybe her free time is at 9 o'clock at night, don't overlook that, because a busy mom at 9 o'clock at night that's got her PJs on and a laptop in front of her can do a whole lot of work. And that work can be, emailing people out, filling slots. We keep going back to the food pantry as an example, just because it's such a remarkable organization that your community has with some volunteers who have such passion and dedication. But some of the tips that are offered is, once you build that relationship, once you start understanding that there are people that want to volunteer, but they have crazy schedules. If you can get them on the schedule a couple times a month, that's awesome.
Right.
If you can have a shared calendar with your volunteers so your volunteers can see what slots are open and that being filled, maybe they would know someone that's available during those times. It's an opportunity then for them to kind of bring someone else in. Maybe it's an opportunity to say, you know what, I actually have a free hour when my son or daughter is at basketball practice. I'm just going to buzz across town and work for an hour and then go back and pick them up. There's always ways of fitting things into our schedule. We just have to get creative, and we really have to use technology and our human capital to just help make it happen, to get organized and make it happen.
Without a doubt. I mean, when there's a will, there is a way, and there's always people looking to volunteer. Just that one added person. I'm picturing a mother in PJs right now getting to absolute work on making an Excel spreadsheet, making sure there's volunteers for the week there. I mean, that's not too crazy of a thing to recommend to nonprofits out there and really get their volunteers in order. Ms. Belusco, we're kind of running out of time here, but if you had one message to the volunteers and to volunteerism in general, what would that be?
Don't give up. Continue to build those relationships and make sure that you're scheduling your volunteers months and weeks in advance and get it on a calendar and just keep going with it. And if they have any questions or ever want my help, they can certainly give me a call at the Extension office. My number is 217-532-3941.
Beautiful. Ms. Belusco, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That was Valerie Belusco with the University of Illinois Extension Community and Economic Development Educator. We talked all about volunteerism today and how just more nonprofits. We talked about the Taylorville Food Pantry as a great example of it. Just more nonprofits getting volunteers to help with all the great work. This has been Tim Zalabak here on the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you for listening.
Your information station, WTIM.
With SRN News,